This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. At the end of the day, I'm just a bloke with a chest freezer in his backyard, and before undertaking anything such as an ice bath, you should consult your health professionals and do your own research. Now, time for the show. G'day legends, my name's Trav Dittmar and welcome to another episode of the Cold Exposure Hot Topics podcast. I'm joined today by Derek Crozier. Derek, how you going, mate?
I'm great. Fantastic.
Feeling good after the ice bath?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Invigorated.
That's what we like to hear, and went in for 6 minutes, so very impressed. And that's the benchmark now, guys. That's the one to beat. So keep you on your toes.
Set the bar. All right.
So we connected through, I suppose, probably about 18 months ago, maybe, through Man on Purpose.
Yes.
And you've been on a bit of a spiritual journey throughout your life yourself. You were raised in a spiritual household, and tell us a bit about that.
I was, yeah. My parents were both very spiritually aware, I guess you could say. You know, Dad was into star charts, moon charts, astrology and whatnot, and natural healing and natural remedies, when Mum was into more of the crystals, numerology. And so there was a bit of quite a lot of variety there when it comes to that line of things. In the era I grew up, being born in the 80s, throughout school, my dad used to say to me, he's like, be careful what you talk about at school. It's still considered a little bit crazy at the moment.
Yeah, a bit woo-woo.
Yeah. But these days it's more obviously mainstream and spoken about. So yeah, it's great to be able to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, it's more and more common these days. So what do you think about that upbringing, specifically from a spirituality sense, has shaped you into who you are now?
Oh, man, yeah. Actually, that question is actually the answer. It has shaped me to who I am. Like, I apply it to everything in everyday life, and I don't even realise it. Yeah. Just how you interact, how I interact with another person is always got that sort of spiritual foundation behind it, because knowing that we all are energy and we are all love and light, and because I believe, this is my beliefs obviously, that we are all one and we all come from and go back to, and we are all one, then therefore the people I interact with are just reflections of myself. And so, if I'm being mean to someone, I'm being mean to myself, an aspect of myself, and so forth. And so it has shaped me for who I am and made me the person that I am proud of, actually. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Cheers.
So one of the things you said in the message that you sent me about topics, and it was a broad range, was about a past life experience when you were 9.
Yeah, past life regression.
Yeah, so talk to us a bit about that.
So Dad was into, obviously, the past life regression, and we knew someone who was a hypnotist, a friend of mine, and he explained to my dad that when you're actually using hypnotism, you take people back further and further into their earliest childhood memories, for example. And this hypnotist found that some people were going back further than the childhood memory. And even at the time, this was common knowledge in areas of past life regression where it's, people would go back maybe further than expected, and that's when things came up.
Yeah.
This was something my father was into and interested in. And before I was maybe tarnished with the world out there at the age of 9. I hadn't even tried a drink of alcohol yet or anything.
Well, that's good.
So, yeah, that's a good thing. So at the age of 9, Dad tried doing past life regression on me. At the time, I was already in a household with a lot of meditation and obviously being exposed to that. So it wasn't anything new to me. So being in a meditative state with Dad's research into hypnosis and his experience through his friend, gave it a go on a number of occasions. And this one time, it was the most incredible experience because it was the first time I'd had some images come through from my higher self. So in meditation, you have images come through from nowhere potentially, and that's coming from where? From the universe. If it's not coming from your mind or even your intuition, where is it coming from? It's coming from the universe. This is my first experience of that at the age 9 through having this meditation with Dad. He did past life regression on to me. He was taking me back, to my earliest childhood memory. And that's quite interesting because, you know, some people haven't even asked themselves that. What is your earliest memory that you remember? So this is really tuning into when you're in that meditative state, or for me, I was in that hypnosis state. There was memories coming up that were coming in fresh. And when they were coming through, they were memories. They were from the mind. But when Dad asked me to go back further and try and remember something that was earlier than that moment, then I had images come through that weren't from my mind, and that's when I knew I was getting something. At the time I didn't, because I didn't recognize it. It was something new and different, but then obviously with experience over my life, I do now know that I was getting images from my higher self. I was getting images from the universe. So what I saw in past life regression, I saw a horse with what I now know is called a farrier, the gentleman that puts the horseshoe in the hot coals, which is called coke, and they actually hammer it onto the bottom of the horse. And that farrier is what I was observing in the images I saw with the past life regression. Now, at the time, afterwards as well, and we recorded the audio so I could listen back to it because you're in that hypnotic state. And obviously that reaffirmed what I was seeing. But at the time, I wasn't sure if I was the person observing the farrier and the horse, or if I was the actual, wait, maybe I was the horse.
I was going to say,
I don't know.
The farrier could be the horse.
I don't know. So, yeah, I was quite sort of confused at what I was viewing there. It all made sense in the future, which is where I'll get to. So this is what I saw, and this was at 9 years old, and I had this imagery come through. It was a white horse. I can even explain all the details of the surroundings, even the blades of grass in the ground. You know, it was vivid imagery. And so my whole life I had this, knowing that I have had this experience and whatnot. Then at the age of 41, my father explained to me about our where I came from and my lineage and my family bloodline. And I asked him about a particular person, my great-grandfather, who I'd seen a photo of and I felt a bit of a connection with. And my father begins to explain that he was a farrier in World War II. And straight away, the connection was made there. I was like, this could have been me. This was an interesting thing, because the most interesting thing was that Dad hadn't made the correlation between my great-grandfather knowing he was a farrier and then knowing what I'd seen in this imagery, you know, which was very strange. So that was the first unique thing. His name is, what was his name? His first name, Frederick Bennett. And my name is Derek, which comes from the name Frederick. Fred Derek. And so that was the first correlation. He was born in 1882. I was born in 1982. And there was just a few little funny connections there. But the interesting thing is speaking to another hypnotist, who does past life regression. He explained that it's very common to be reincarnating in the bloodline, in the lineage. So to hear that you were potentially your great-great-grandfather has some legs to it, as opposed to just being someone random, like I remember being Elvis or something. You know, it's more frequent apparently that it's within your bloodline.
There you go.
Yeah.
So when you say hypnosis, was there a combination of techniques used here? Because my understanding is there'd be a fair bit of like NLP, you know, that sort of thing. Is that the main crux of it, or is there a bit of other stuff going on as well?
Well, it's basically starting with you're in a guided meditation. And if you have any meditative experience, then obviously you can get into that a lot deeper. If you can get into that meditative state and you're being guided through a guided meditation, then maybe that's how Dad, I think, was viewing the hypnosis state. If I can do a guided meditation and have, you know, obviously Derek had these experience during meditation, then why wouldn't we be able to maybe use it to go physically back? You know, what is your earliest memory? What do you remember prior to this? You know, I'm sure you've heard about a lot of children that remember their past lives. You know, I think they're called star children. And
you know, my family talk about my guardian angel, who, you know, is my nana's brother, who I didn't meet. And apparently, like, I was just drawn to him, and he was a pilot. Now, I could never be a pilot. I wear glasses for one, but it's fascinating, isn't it?
Interesting. Was there any connection there? Did you know other than just family? Was there like...
I'm a bit more curious to investigate it now because it's not something that I've really thought about beyond what my nan and my mum's told me. So, that's an interesting topic.
Yeah, I find it fascinating because having children remembering these past lives experiences is something that's intrigued me immensely. It seems to be around the age of 9, 10, 11 that you start to forget. You know, I think that's why Dad was trying to try and capture that information before I got too late. You know, like the further away you are from where you came from, the harder it would be to remember. I think. So I definitely found the correlation there with my great grandfather and myself potentially, I find that amazing.
So have you explored that correlation, that potential bond any further? Like, have you got a love for horses, or have you got other traits of his? Or
well, it's interesting because I had an opportunity. I used to be in film production, and I had an opportunity to do a small documentary for the Royal Adelaide Show about farriers and about the farrier competition that was held at the Royal Adelaide Show. I'm not sure if they still have it there or not, but that's where I learnt all about it, and I found it fascinating. Like, I felt drawn to it. And this is before I'd even known that there was a family member who was a farrier. So to feel drawn towards this was definitely there. That was the correlation I felt. But other than that, that's been the only thing along the journey. Yeah. The other interesting thing is that when I was growing up, and if you got on the bus without a bus ticket and you got caught by an inspector and you said you didn't have your wallet on you or your license, you had to give an alias name, or your real name, which for me was an alias. And I used to say my name was Justin Bennett, Bennett. And it used to just roll off the tongue. And it was funny because my dad said that my great-grandfather's last name was Bennett, Bennett. So it's funny how I chose that as my alias my whole life, as my fake last name. And it ended up being potentially, a real last name of mine if it was true.
Yeah, wow. It's crazy how those little coincidences happen, isn't it? Those little idiosyncrasies that are going on without even realising it.
Connections.
Yeah, everything's connected. As you said, we're all one and whatnot. So tell me a bit more about furthering your spiritual journey. So beyond what you learnt from your parents and then making that your own, what was that? Let's try that again. Yeah. What did that look like for you?
Oh, mate. Well, it was interesting in the household. Obviously, it was a little bit different to other people's households. So obviously, I knew that I was very grateful to be in this different environment. Looking back on it now, even more grateful, having those foundations set for the early stages. For myself, I ended up going down the path where I was in and out. To be completely honest and vulnerable with you and your listeners, I found that on my journey, because I'm still human and I wanted to experience things, I still was, I'm going to drink and party and have fun. I wasn't in this purest Buddhist monk path in life, which, on a side note, I do believe that people that are like a Buddhist monk that never got to try a cigarette behind the school shed, it's missing out. They're missing out on experiences, life experiences. And I believe that is the meaning of life, is to experience things, life itself. Do we not continue to experience in our dreams? I think the answer there is is looking at us in the face. But yeah, I ended up going in and out. So for the early stages of my life, it was obviously predominant. And then I was, the hormones kicked in. I was starting to be a teenager. I wanted to have fun. I was drinking, having fun. Wasn't as interested. And then when I turned 18, I ended up coming back to it. I got very clean and I ended up having my Reiki attunements and I became a Reiki therapist. Did level 1 and level 2 with a family friend who gave it to me as a gift.
I'm actually level 2 as well, funnily enough. I haven't looked at it for years, but I've still got the books there and everything.
Same. And it's a gift. It's something that you've been given and you will have it for the rest of your life. You'll always have these attunements and the form. So it's something that, for myself, I always knew that if I did go and run amok again, it's something I could go back to later in life, which I have now. And it has been something that's been in and out of life beneficial. In early stages, it may have just been helping with, a physical pain, a girlfriend's period pain or something, if it was, and I'd use it there. But then later in life, when things became more serious in my own life, I found that I was using it for myself.
Yes.
And that was the biggest thing, to heal myself. I think a lot of healers find it very easy to want to pursue that path to heal others, but there's healers I know out there that didn't actually end up using it for themselves or haven't on their journey. And I think that's the biggest thing, is we have to, it's almost like advice. What advice would you give yourself?
And it's how you keep in tune, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. If your energy isn't, if you're not in check with your body, your energy, your alignment, and you're projecting onto someone else through the method of healing, then what's that impact going to have? Like,
how you affect on others, exactly. Yes, the amount of times I've been in a room full of people that are maybe sharing their vulnerabilities or even suffering, and just imagining that love and light in a golden shower pouring over everyone is just this intention that you're producing there. And that's also exercising the Reiki and keeping it predominant in your life, but it's also part of your own healing journey, I found as well.
Big time.
100%. So it's definitely been in and out of life. And then obviously I was on that Reiki journey and I was back into that spiritual element. But then started traveling around Australia and meeting people and partying again, and all of a sudden, and then, so it wasn't there. So I'd like to say, like, the eternal quest in life, I think, is to find balance between everything in life is balance, right? So for me, that's been part of the journey, is to try and get the balance, and it hasn't. It's been one or the other. Now in my 40s, I'm finding that I have found a way for both,
you can still, like, it's like if you overdo anything, you can't just spend all of your time meditating and not doing anything, because like, you got to eat, you got to go out, you got to get sunlight, you got to do this, you got to do that, but then you can't just spend all your time doing and not coming back to self and resting and all of that sort of thing.
Like I said, I do believe the Buddhist monk is missing out on that cigarette behind the school shed experience, and so that's why I wanted this journey in life to be rich in experiences. I believe I believe this also, that if reincarnation is real and there was all this past, burning witches at the stake, beheading, all this crazy, like, hard life. Like, life was hard in the past, It wouldn't have been easy in comparison. And to think that that's where we may have come from in past lives, then this life for us, for myself, and for many people out there might be one of the most easiest or enjoyable or fun in comparison to physical thing. I mean, it might not be the easiest as it comes to emotional things, but when it comes to in comparison, it's like, man, if you were burned at the stake and you were beheaded and you had this hard lifestyle of being a slave, building the pyramids, you may this may be your reward life right now. It's just a perspective I like to bring ahead, because even though times might seem tough for a lot of people, there is a chance that this life, if reincarnation is real, could be your reward for going through maybe steps of life. Who knows? It's just a fun fact.
Exactly. I go very deep on that in my own meditation sometimes as well, and go, am I being rewarded in this life? Am I, what is my path? Where am I in the divine journey of everything, and where have I come from? Like, I feel a tie to Egypt, but, maybe that's just because I liked Egypt so much growing up. Who knows? Like, where's the connection? But
you have to try some past life regression, because you never know what could come up.
Yeah, I've done little bits, but it's something I want to do a bit more, because I tended to use more of that timeline therapy stuff for healing inner child stuff and going back and working on, like, trauma and different things like that.
Yes.
But, past life regression would be a bit more fascinating, and I think there'd be some interesting things there for sure.
My father remembered his whole life of being sliced with a samurai sword, actually through the shoulder, in a past life. And when he was younger, he used to just think it was crazy to have any sort of feelings towards this. When he got older and started exploring the spiritual path, and he did have past life regression, he discovered he was fighting along the Great Wall of China as a Chinese soldier. Wow. And so then he had the realization of all these dreams and visions he had had joined with this, and that's when the realization happened. Similar to myself, when I found out about my great-grandfather being the farrier, I straight away realized the correlation between my past life regression at the age of 9 years old to then finding out this information at like 41. And it was like, it just connected straight away without and it was a connection, intuition, and it was I knew it wasn't even just a thought. It was like, that's how it's connected.
This curiosity that I've carried with me, not consciously all the time, but has finally resolved. And
big one. Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I've had that sort of thing happen with trauma and different traits that I've regressed back to in that sort of sense, and it's fantastic when you get those sort of moments. And wow. So you also mentioned your dad quite a bit throughout this, and one of the things you mentioned in the message that you said to me was about a remote viewing experience of Area 51.
Interesting stuff. So I'll just quickly set some foundations. So my father, remote viewing, for those that don't know, was something that started in the 60s. So the America realized that Russian was obtaining a lot of secret information, and they didn't know how. And they found out that they had psychic soldiers, basically, to spy on the American government. And the American government thought that was quite amusing when they discovered this, but then they realized that it was actually obviously working because they were obtaining information. So then the government joined with a university. What's that famous university? Stanford University joined together with the American government and put together a program called controlled remote viewing, and they put science behind it to actually show that it had some legitimacy. And so they used it secretly in the 60s to spy on the enemy and to obtain information in all sorts of ways. There was a very well-known remote viewer called Ingo Swann from memory, and he was the one that wrote many books about this subject because he was the main number one government employee that was heading these groups, these remote viewing groups. In 1996, they declassified the information about this and they released it to the public, and it was in the scientific community recognized as a scientific practice. So therefore, my father found this fascinating. In 1996, he, after the information was released, he started a remote viewing group with like-minded individuals. And then in 97 is when it got to about 12 people in the group. And once a month, they would meet and have a remote viewing session, which would be them all sitting around a table, and you would receive some coordinates that, say, the neighbour would write down and put in an envelope, some coordinates on the earth of a location that's well known, maybe say the pyramid. And then the group would then say meditate or sit with these coordinates sitting in the envelope, sealed with no one able to see, and they would get imagery through meditation. And basically the imagery would come through would be different from each person, but they would be able to paint a picture from this and then see if it correlates with the coordinates. So this was a way of testing the ability. And my father and the group of 12, my dad told me on the spiritual side of things, there was more energy in the room. That means there was more power, you could say, to gain more accuracy. Whereas if you were just maybe meditating by yourself and with these coordinates, you wouldn't get as much information. The more you get, the more picture. So therefore, my dad realized that they were onto something special because they were getting a lot of confirmation, to the point where they chose a horse race that was happening the following day, and they see how many horses they could pick in the order that they came in. And I remember they had an over 50% success rate with the horse race that they had chose. They even got one of the scratchings of the horses that was missing. That was something that stood out. I was only 16 years old at the time, so obviously I had these memories, and I spoke to Dad over his lifetime before he passed to confirm that my memories weren't too distorted, because it was quite fascinating and also a little bit disappointing, because my father said, I said to my dad, we can make money now, the horse races. You should be able to pick the lotto numbers. And he said the only way we would do that is to fund the project. The only reason we would do anything like that is to fund the project. He believed that if it was done for any ill use, then they wouldn't get accurate results, Yeah. So basically, they started to test their abilities more and more to get accuracy on things. And once they felt that they were at a good level, they started to look into certain things that they wouldn't be able to confirm the answers to. So Dad said that a lot of people with remote viewing think that they're bound to the planet Earth and bound to the time that we're in. So you can only choose now. But no, you can actually go anywhere previously in time and you can choose any planet, really. There's no limits when it comes to remote viewing. So Dad thought, well, we created this group to seek knowledge. And we want knowledge and answers. So the first thing they did was Area 51. They were like, let's go and have a look at Area 51. So this wasn't organised amongst them. Obviously, someone had written coordinates there was a certain process to get the information that they got. Yeah. And Dad said that they came to the conclusion that there wasn't any UFO activity. There wasn't any outer world activity happening there. Dad was a bit disappointed. He was hoping to find aliens, locked up somewhere. But no, he said the only thing they came across looking throughout time on Area 51 was the stealth bomber potentially being on the drawing board, So coming up with the design for the stealth bomber, which was released a lot later. But this was back before the 60s. Dad said they were looking into Area 51 around that time. So, basically maybe some intel on some intelligence that might have been back then. Also at the time in the 90s, it was very predominant, the face on Mars. So there was a lot of pictures that came through into the public of photos of Mars that had a face on there from afar, from an aerial view. And my father thought, wow, there was the theories at the time that maybe there was life on Mars prior to, and that's where they created this human face and so someone would see it one day. Anyway, it sounded very interesting, but my dad said he went there with the group and they discovered that it was just mountains there. It was just an illusion of the shadows of taken at this time. So once again, disappointed. Dad really wanted to find answers here. He also there was some strange patterns like shapes on the moon at the time that people were observing through telescopes. It's a bit of a triangular structure, I think, near a crater. Dad said they went there and they couldn't find anything that was abnormal, nothing that wasn't natural looking or whatnot. So they were trying to pursue information and answers and unfortunately was disappointed with what they were coming back with. They did believe that they travelled to nearby planets and whatnot, but like I said, it was hard to get confirmation on stuff. They did come to the conclusion that there was not life on Mars, but there was water and green, and there was an atmosphere of some sort on Mars at one point. And this was in the 90s that my dad had the group, and now we know, obviously, since we've sent the rover up there, that there was potential for this to have been true. And so that's the only thing that's really had confirmation. But to know that my dad could put together a group like this and potentially find the answers to things was fascinating. At the age of 16, this was almost magical to me. It was to think, wow, there's potential here. I must say also that my father was very reluctant to explain and tell me things when I was younger. He really wanted me to find out for myself. He said, go and read the Bible, go and read the Quran, go and read, do some research into other things. Don't take everything I'm saying as gospel. Have your own experiences, and I really appreciate him for saying that.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously he's constructed his own worldview throughout his own life and all of these experiences as well. And, the remote viewing type of thing might seem a bit woo-woo to some people and there might be some questions about it. But, there's nothing wrong with what he's been able to come up with. And, like you say with the Mars example, there's been potential evidence to show life there and stuff. It's just it's fascinating how different worldviews can come up with different different things that then are later backed or
yes,
subsequently being backed by research. And,
well, the fact that the American government used this to spy on the enemy, or at least Russians were using this to spy on the government, and then to actually come up with a scientific method for controlled remote viewing. My dad thought that was fascinating. He always told me that spiritual and science are connected and they are one. We look at them as separate, but they're slowly coming together. I mean, look at quantum physics and the simulation theory. These are almost putting something physical into the spiritual, connecting the two together. And I think that's what happened with the remote viewing, because there was this science behind it, because there was, or science, the feeling that the science and spiritual were being connected, because Dad was taking in the spiritual aspect of maybe astral projection, which is something he was also interested in, and it had experiences with, and the mixing of that amongst the energy in the room with the scientific concentrating on coordinates and getting imagery coming through from your higher self. I think Dad felt that was almost like the beginning of those two connecting.
Yeah, those worlds coming together.
He explained to me once, he said, I asked him for an example of how is spiritual and science connected? Like, how what are you talking about? They sound like chalk and cheese. But he said, is it not a scientific fact that every living thing on this planet has some form of energy that it loses when it dies? It's a scientific fact that it loses that energy when it dies. Whatever that energy is, you can call it the soul, you can call it this, you can call it that. And that's where Dad sort of explained the two together. Or even the feeling of deja vu. He said the scientific reason may be the signals hitting the wrong part of the brain to give you that feeling, but could it not be a reminder that you're on the right path on where you're meant to be at that moment in time?
Yeah, you've envisaged this at some point before or anything like that. And I think, another way to look at the connection between the scientific and the spiritual is both of them help us understand the world.
Yes.
In some kind of foundational way.
Yes.
And, as we build our understanding of both, the natural thing is they are going to come together. And I think that's beautiful. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Whereas this could be a dangerous tangent, but with, some religions and things like that, it's this is what happened. Despite science, despite reasoning, despite this, that, and you just have to have faith that this is what happened.
Yeah, believe us.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And project money into our organisations. But I digress. But yeah, it's a beautiful interconnectedness between the scientific and the spiritual, and that's an example I haven't really heard about. So thanks very much for sharing that.
No worries. No, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for the experience of even being in the ice bath. That's finding the comfort in discomfort, I think is an amazing thing. Is a hot topic, I think, right now.
Well, it's been something you've repeated a couple of times since you've been here, and it's a very, very powerful thing to do, and it teaches you a lot about yourself. Yes. What are some things that you've done? Obviously the ice bath's one of those things that you do semi-regularly.
Yes.
What other things are you doing to put yourself in discomfort?
Pushing myself, I've been addicted to jogging lately. I'd love to say running, but I don't want to discredit runners because I'm just jogging. A lot of people
more than I am.
A lot of people say, let's go for a run. I'm like, well, we're actually just jogging, we're actually just jogging. And but that's something there that's been a challenge because fitness hasn't been in my life predominantly. This is a new thing, and so I've had to work through my own mind to, push myself to do those things, and things like the ice bath or breathwork groups or even meditation consistently, these sort of things, it's showing up for yourself, and it's like anything in life, right? But the running has been hard. Jogging has been hard. That's been the hard thing, to actually show up to yourself for that. This is this physical thing like it is going to the gym, and that's been the comfort in discomfort, because what I've learned, and I don't know what other people's journeys are like, and I don't know what other practices are like or techniques, but I've learned to focus on that feeling I have after achieving those goals. So the feeling I have after knowing that, wow, I went in an ice bath this morning, or wow, I jogged 5Ks in my best time. Like that feeling, that euphoric feeling, to me is something that I can tune into, and that's what motivates me. That's what gets me to do it without even thinking. It's like, yep, straight in the ice bath. Yep, straight on those running shoes, straight in there. Because that feeling is so good. It's almost like some people, someone I spoke to the other day was saying they don't feel the need to do this hard drug because the come down was so terrible. You know, the come down was such a terrible come down, or being hungover was so terrible from that motivated them to not drink. And I thought that's quite an interesting concept to that, because I'm applying that in the other way.
In the opposite direction, yeah. And that's amazing that you can hold on to that feeling that you know you're going to have, because that is the hard thing to do. It's, you know, subconsciously, I guess people know that they're going to feel better for doing something, but it's the doing something in the way that can be the off-putting thing. So you've been able to focus on that rather than this, and that's really powerful, man. Yeah,
cheers. Yeah, as I'm telling you this, I'm realizing that has been actually the secret, because I've pushed aside the hard part because it's so great. That feeling is so great. So that's what it must be. It really is. If people could put themselves in that feeling again and remind themselves how they felt at that moment in time. Like when, you know, you're trying to take yourself away to a place when you're getting like an injection or blood being taken or something, and it's like, okay, think about that happy place. It's like, if you've got the power to do that, should you not be able to think about that happy feeling that you have when you achieve those goals? Yeah. Yeah. To me, I know there's a lot of techniques, a lot of, you know, and this has probably been spoken about a million times, but yeah, to me, that is the secret.
Yeah, and there's, like you said, there is a lot of variables that can come up with it as well that, you know, for me, one thing I'm not struggling with at the moment, I just need to go there and do it, but it's getting back into the routine at the gym. Because, like, I went through a lot of stuff years ago with trauma based around fitness that I have overcome and got into a really good spot, and then I went and had my wrist fusion. So now for me, it's going, okay, now I've got to get over the anxiety that's just still there, that I'm, you know, I know I don't have to be anxious, but I've still got to get over that.
Yeah.
Then I've got to get there and do the hard thing.
Yes.
But then afterwards, I'm going to feel great.
Yes.
And that's where I've got to get to with that. And I suppose there's situations where that applies, where it's easier in some degrees than others. But
yeah, it is. It's almost like what's that paycheck going to buy me? You know, it's like we don't think about the work we're doing to earn that paycheck at the time. We're always thinking about what that paycheck is going to achieve or where it's going to get us. So that's 100% where it is.
Yeah,
internally.
It's the long-term focus, isn't it? It's doing the hard thing to get the good result.
To get the results, yeah, 100%.
Well, they say the road to heaven looks like hell, and the road to hell looks like heaven. So you know,
that's a good one.
Yeah,
I like that.
Well, it's what it is, isn't it?
That's
you know,
so true.
Doing the hard things, learning about yourself, doing the work, whatever that might be.
Yes.
To get that self-awareness, to get that next level of consciousness, and
enjoying the journey.
Exactly right.
The journey of Trav.
The journey of Trav, the journey of Derek, the journey of everyone.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so what's the rest of the year look like for you, mate?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I've got a lot of projects that I'm working on, and I've got a new career path that I'm taking. I've started my life again after the age of 40, which could be a bit daunting for some out there, and it was for me in the beginning, but now I'm excited. I had to remind myself that the world is your oyster, right? You know, it's like you have this, well, hopefully people have this passion when they're young, like I did, where it's like, I can do anything I want. I can be anything I want. And then starting your life again, you know, at 40, it can be daunting. You're thinking, I can do anything I want. I can be anything I want still. I can be an astronaut if I want to be, you know, and knowing that and reminding myself of that has created that same excitement that I had when I was 18. You know, it was like, wow, you know, I can do anything I want. These days we can live longer, you know, and so, you know, I'd love to live forever. That would be great. Put me down for that because I've got so many ideas. There's not enough of me to achieve them all. And so this year, the answer to your question is new career path, new place of living, hopefully, building a home, fingers crossed, and and wherever life takes me. But people are asking me, they're like, oh, so you're moving over here, you've bought some land here, you're potentially building a house, you're going to relocate over to this location. I say yes at this stage, but I know in my heart that I'm so open to any journey that I take and any path that things could change at any time. So people are almost asking me to lock in my plans, but I'm almost saying I don't know where it's going to take me.
Yeah, exactly. And you've got a van you can hop in and take just about anywhere at any given moment.
Yeah,
so, why tie yourself to something which says, yeah, this is me for the next X amount of years?
100%. Yeah, having that van has been amazing freedom. I'm so grateful to have had the time to put together a van with a bed and a kitchen and solar power and everything, and now I can just take it anywhere and go on holiday anywhere, anytime around our beautiful state. And I love that. That is such a beautiful thing because it's given me opportunities that I wouldn't have had before to go to those beaches or those lovely locations and have a place to go and meditate or go for a jog or do whatever I'm doing or come for an ice bath.
Yeah, exactly. Go for a hike, whatever you want. Like you said, the world's your oyster.
The world is my oyster, yeah. So, I feel like a teenager in some ways. You know, I have been told I have Peter Pan syndrome. But I think that's not a bad thing.
No,
Forever
absolutely
young.
not.
Forever young.
And, you know, when I first met you, mate, I thought you were about my age and well, I'm 28. So
oh, right. Cheers.
Yeah, so I wouldn't have guessed that you were in your 40s for a minute.
Yeah,
mate,
I shouldn't have said anything.
Nah, must be something in the water.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Awesome. So, is there anything you'd like to leave us with, mate, before we finish up?
I think that's about it. I really appreciate, like I said, being here and having this opportunity to talk, and I hope that obviously something that we've spoken about resonates with someone out there. That's the whole thing, isn't it, when you're doing something like this, if it can at least capture one person out there, or at least have some sort of ripple effect where it might affect other people.
Yeah, exactly. Spark a discussion, be that light bulb moment for someone, or be someone's drive to work for the morning if they don't want to listen to the radio.
100%.
Whatever it is, that's what we're all about.
Yeah, if that's you, don't think about the work and the hard tasks, think about where the money's taking you.
Start the end in mind.
Yeah, 100%.
So, one thing I always ask my guests as we finish up is, what's a quote or a mantra that really resonates with you?
Oh, it's interesting. This isn't something like a mantra that I live by, but it's something that's come up recently, so I'll bring it up. It's Carl Jung. Carl Jung mentioned. So, a friend of mine came to me with some relationship problems, and he was saying, my partner wants me to go down this path, and this person that was talking to me wants their partner to go down this path. And it reminded me of the quote from Carl Jung saying, man and woman become devil to each other when they fail to separate their spiritual paths. And that really resonated with me, and it has with everyone I've repeated this to that are in the similar situation that I've heard recently with the relationship problem, was once you're trying to maybe control that person's situation, that will cause conflict or friction. So,
thinking that your spiritual path and say your partners are meant to be the same.
Correct.
Everyone's on their own journey, and there's parts of that can come together, sure. But, I guarantee if Em and I were in each other's pockets trying to force the same journey on each other, would not work.
Exactly, yeah. So that quote there from Carl Jung really resonated with me just recently, and the people I spoke to about that, because relationships are also another subject. That's a whole nother podcast.
Absolutely.
Isn't it?
It is. And I do actually intend to have Em on for an interview one day. Just to have a bit of a chat. I can't get her in the ice bath, obviously, because she's pregnant. But
yes, of course.
Yeah, but maybe once that's done.
That'd be
once
great.
our beautiful child is in the world, we can look.
That's it. Yeah, she can get in, hold the baby up above her head. That'd be fine.
It could be a bit of the Simba moment.
Yeah.
Over the land. Oh, nice. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, brother.
Thank you.
Where can people connect with you on socials? Assuming you want people to connect with you.
Yeah, for sure. I'm on Instagram as actual_Derek, DEREK. And follow my journey. I just post my life up there, for people to see, because hopefully that's inspiring if it's anything I've spoken about.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a really cool video on his Instagram as well of the van build. revealed. It is a YouTube link, but I highly recommend watching that. It is very, very cool to see.
Thanks.
Better get my stuff in as well. I'm the Journey of Trav on Instagram, and on YouTube and TikTok, it's just Trav Dittmar. And you can find this podcast obviously where you're listening, but also, Spotify, Apple, and YouTube as well. Thanks for tuning in for this episode of the podcast, and I'll see you next time. Thanks again, Derek.
Thank you.
And take care.
I will.
We'll have to get you on another time.
Great.
Thanks, legends. See you next time. G'day, legends. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Just a reminder for where to follow me on social media. I'm the Journey of Trav on Instagram, Trav Dittmar on YouTube, trav.dittmar on TikTok. And if you are listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please give me a 5-star rating and leave a review as well. That would go a long way to getting this podcast out there. And if you are watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, share, all of that good stuff as well. Thanks heaps, legends, and I'll see you next time.